Welcome to Module 4. We're going to be talking about keto and low carb and sugar. This is a really interesting topic, and I didn't understand about sugar and carbs until probably 2012. I watched a documentary about sugar and understood it a little bit, but really didn't dive deep into this until 2021 when I was learning about intermittent fasting and I combined that with the low carb and keto. So you can do your own research. You can understand this on your own. This is my perspective and what's worked for me and how I really think it will work for other people based on what I have researched. So keto and the low carb lifestyle. Simple changes make big results. This is our fourth piece of the puzzle with 12 pieces in it. And we're going to start lesson 10 where we learn about carbs and sugar. I showed you this pyramid of sugar cubes at the end of the last lesson. And this represents 54 cubes of sugar, and each cube represents a teaspoon of sugar, and each cube also represents 4 grams. So how much sugar do we eat in a day? So the recommended amount for the standard American diet, which is based on the food pyramid, is 225 to 325 grams of carbs per day. This is less than the first number. This is 216. Carbs turn into sugar in our body. It sees it as the same thing. That's a lot. One day. That's how much I used to eat. I used to eat on the high side, the 325, I'm sure, because I thought the food pyramid was the way I was supposed to be eating. That's what we were told. This is the graphical representation in a nice orderly way of what this amount of sugar is. I tried to stack it up and it kept falling down. How much do we eat in a week? That's 378 sugar cubes per week. And remember, that's on the low side of their recommendation. So which foods are high in carbs? Sugary foods, desserts, grains, breads, cereals, and most snack foods that are prepared and processed. So that's the general categories. Now let's actually look at some foods. I've been showing you these snacks throughout the lessons, the snacks that have sugar in them, and some of these are listed in here, but I'm going to show you even some more. So donuts, smoothies, popcorn, tortillas. I listed smoothies twice. Guess it's important. Juice, cereals, granola bars, protein shakes, candy, chocolate, rice, pop, muffins, bagels, oatmeal, crackers, pasta, buns, and bread. Bread's listed twice too. So the food pyramid, I'm sure you've heard about the food pyramid. It came into existence around 1970 by a doctor, and then it was incorporated mainstream in the 1990s. It was very widespread. So hundreds of millions of people in North America especially were told this is the way we were supposed to eat. And it had also been incorporated around the world in a lot of places. What does the food pyramid represent? It represents what that one doctor and other doctors along the way between those 2 decades, and a lot of people thought this is the way we are supposed to be eating. There is some controversy around this, that there were food companies involved in promoting it. I won't get into that at all. All I know is this is what we were told to do. So we trusted the people that were telling us this. When we see, where is the 54 sugar cubes? Remember, that's the minimum. Where is it coming from? It's mostly coming from the top of the pyramid and the bottom. Those are where most of the carbs are. Ironically, this diagram actually shows donuts, muffins, and pop and chips or French fries at the top, the cheat foods kind of thing. What if we took the middle section out because it has the least amount of carbs? The only carbs in that middle section pretty much is from the fruits. So they're coming from the sugars and the grains, and that's representing the 54 cubes of sugar. What if we redefine it? What if we say, that hasn't been working? That's what made me the way I was. I was eating that way. That didn't work. That made me gain weight. That made me become obese. So maybe it is flawed. Maybe that pyramid is actually flawed because it's causing me to be obese. That's how I discovered this. This is how I understood it. This wasn't my fault that I was eating so much sugar. I was told to. It was recommended that I eat that amount, that I was supposed to have that much carbs and sugar in my body every single day. I was told to do that. But let's look at our grandparents and their grandparents and their grandparents, and even just 200 years ago, before a lot of the factories and the processed food companies came along. What were they recommending? It's unprocessed foods. So it's basically what can be grown on the farm instead of what can be made in the factory. Back when I was religious, it's what would God have made or what was man made. It's very simple when you look at it that way. A lot of people recommend the Mediterranean diet, and this is basically the Mediterranean diet, and there's a tiny bit of grain at the top there, meaning eating less of it. The point of the pyramid is you eat the largest quantity. It's represented by the base, and its quantity is less and less as you get to the top. The keto diet is basically zero carbs. I mean, it's not zero carbs, but it's 15 carbs and below. And 15 carbs and below is, well, that's 16. That's 16 carbs. Like, very, very hard. I've tried the keto. I alternate it sometimes. It's really, really hard to stay below 15 grams of carbs. Some doctors say the keto can go all the way up to 50 grams of carbs, but true keto, they'll say that's dirty keto, which is a little higher, and clean keto or pure keto is 15 grams and below. So what does keto mean? Keto means we are going to be a fat burning machine instead of a sugar burning machine. I didn't believe it was possible to actually switch my body from consuming the sugars and the carbs and burning that, because that's how I had been taught. That's how we are taught, that we have to have sugar and we have to have carbs in order to live. And when I started to go down this rabbit hole and researched it, and there are whole communities and whole cultures that have almost no carbs. Lots of them in the north where they can't even have a fruit tree because it's so cold. So they can't have the fruit. It's hard to grow vegetables there, so they're not going to be getting the carbs from their vegetables. It's mostly fat and meat that they are living on, and their bodies do fine on that. There's other cultures that are plant-based and they hardly have any meat. There's other cultures that have a mix. There's a lot of different variety around the world, which told me there's not one perfect diet. So I alternate a lot in terms of some days I eat a lot more plants. Some days I eat more meat. So I am an omnivore. I hear about other people that have gone completely to the vegan side or the vegetarian or the carnivore, this whole spectrum, and they're doing fine. They say they're doing fine. I'm not in their house. I don't look at their medical records to see if they're actually doing fine, what's their blood work like. But what I'm saying is it's a free-for-all out there, and you can get overwhelmed by all of this. You should do this, you should do that. This is my recommendation based on what worked for me, what is still working for me. I alternate keto with low carb. And low carb for me is under 100 grams of carbs, between around 50 and 100 grams of carbs a day. So the keto pyramid has almost no carbs. You're eating a lot of the fats. I found it actually hard to eat that much fat in the dairy. I got constipation. I don't like avocados very much. The chocolate would make me want to binge on it. I also didn't love my plate being 90% meat or 100% meat, so I didn't want to even try carnivore. I've never tried carnivore. I don't love meat that much. I like cooked vegetables. I like salads. I don't love them. I like them, and I love fruit. So I have created a diet for myself that is a combination of low carb and keto. You're going to have to do this yourself. You're going to need to figure out what diet works for you, and you can combine them. And one day you can be keto, and one day you can be low carb, and maybe you want to try vegetarian for a day or a week. That's your choice. There's no rules in this, and that we don't have to try one diet, because I guarantee you will find another doctor, another study, another researcher out there telling you this is the one. You can't have one that's a perfect diet and another one that's a perfect diet. This is my recommendation. Don't go keto all the time, especially if you're a woman in perimenopause. And for me, now that I'm in menopause after my hysterectomy, I can't do keto very much either. Maybe I can do it for a couple days. I get bored, and then I see it as a fad diet and I go off of it. So I want it to be alternating, and that's what makes it work. That's what makes it sustainable. Is it's not a fad diet. It's not one thing and then you feel deprived and you go off of it. To me, the definition of the fad diets are, it's a fad, comes and goes. So the low carb diet is meat and fish and vegetables, mostly cooked vegetables, leafy greens, small amount of berries, nuts, seeds, including chia seeds, eggs, high-fat dairy and cheese, bone broth, olive oil, ghee, and coconut oil. These are all things that I eat on a regular basis, other than the coconut oil. I don't always like the taste of it. Chia seeds I don't have very often either. All of the rest, that's mostly my diet. And when you watch the cooking class in the later module, you'll see those are a lot of the things that I talk about and cook also. The snack for this lesson is pretzels. And that's a lot of pretzels. So I can see myself not eating actually that many pretzels. Some of the servings that they have on the nutrition label, I would eat more of in the past. And that's a lot of pretzels for me. But maybe if you like pretzels, you might eat more than that. So it's 52 grams of pretzel, 40 grams of carbohydrates. It's a lot of sugar. We just think of these things as salty snack, must be healthy for us, must not have very much sugar in it, or must not convert into very much sugar in our body. It's 40 grams of sugar in our body. So if you were trying keto, which is 4, 8, 12, 16, basically 4 of those for the whole day, you know, keto has around 50, true keto is around 15 grams of carbs. This is 15 grams of carbs for the whole day, which is basically very hard to do. I've tried it a few times. It's basically the only carbs I'm getting is from some of the vegetables. And yeah, it's really, really hard. So, you know, this is not keto at all. Anyways, it's eye-opening, that's for sure. So the snack for this lesson in the snack bag is blueberry muffins. So I love muffins. I used to love making muffins. It was one of my favorite things. And then I realized it's basically cake. When I actually look at the recipes, the difference between a cake recipe and a muffin recipe is not much different. Maybe a tiny bit less sugar, but pretty much the same amount of ingredients. So a muffin for 100 grams is 44 grams of carbs, 100 grams of a muffin and 44 grams of carbs. That's a lot of sugar. So I used to have these like twice a day. I'd have one for breakfast and one as a snack. Can you imagine? Like, that's no wonder I was so overweight. I just like, your body can't handle that much carbs at one time. So since I bought these for this demonstration, it was a pack of 4. I cut them into, or the other ones, I cut them into 4 pieces. Actually, even that, I shouldn't be eating that at one point. That's like, yeah. Anyways, that's a lot. I should have cut them into 6 pieces now that I'm aware of that. Anyways, and so I'd have it with my meal, and it's sort of like a dessert. But boy, it's tempting to overeat for me, tempting to overeat on the muffins. So have tiny bites, 2 bites. Actually, a quarter of it is more than 2 bites. I'm breaking my own rule. So just be very aware of the amount of carbs that your body is having to deal with when you eat a muffin, and slowly wean yourself off of these and it will get easier. And I just don't buy them anymore because they are tempting for me. Even having them in pieces in the house is tempting for me. Thankfully, no one else in the family in our house likes muffins much, so they're not around at all. So they definitely are a treat, and I just don't have them around because they're just too tempting for me. There's certain foods don't tempt me at all. Muffins is one of the ones that does. What's in the snack bag for this lesson? Popcorn. This is just shocking to me. As I've been doing this experiment to see how many carbs are in all of these snacks, some of them have been more enlightening or made me more shocked than other ones, and popcorn is one of them. Now, this is microwave popcorn, and for the one bag, it's the equivalent of 48 grams of carbs. How is that possible? I grew up having popcorn every Sunday night. My mother's family, they had grown up having popcorn every Sunday night. For my kids, my 3 kids, when they were young, all the way up probably until they were early teens, we had popcorn every Sunday night. It was just a tradition. We'd have popcorn, apples, cheese, and pickles, and milkshake, homemade milkshake. Very, very strange, I know, but it was just a tradition every Sunday night. And to realize It's not the butter, it's the corn. The corn is a starch, the corn is a carbohydrate, and I could eat probably 2 bowls worth, Can imagine twice that many. So no wonder you get tired sometimes after eating, because your body is spending all of its energy trying to find a place to store all of this extra carbs, because you don't need that. You can't possibly use all that carb at one time unless you're carb loading like an athlete and they're going to go out and do a lot of exercise right afterwards. Then they can use it up. But in general, regular people cannot use it up that fast. You're not eating keto. Keto is that for a whole day. I've heard of athletes being keto, and I've heard of athletes being carb loaders, where they have tons and tons of carbs. So I'm not speaking from an athletic perspective. I'm speaking from a regular person's perspective. And for me, and what I've learned, we can only use a very small amount of carbs at a time. So, actually, I've heard things like even 8 grams of carbs at one point is even hard for the body to use up. So it's going to try to store the other one. So very, very eye-opening stuff that I've been learning about. And anyways, that's an awful lot of sugar cubes for the amount of popcorn. So if you love popcorn, maybe have, the equivalent of that, a couple of handfuls maybe, or 1 handful worth, and have it at the end of your meal. Try not to snack on it. I did not grow up going to movies at the movie theater, but I know that's what a lot of people do, is they go to the movie theater with the excitement of being able to have popcorn there. Maybe treat that as your meal. I would recommend not make it a habit. And when you're trying to lose weight, definitely. So wean off the popcorn if you can, because it is usually a snack food. That's the end of lesson 10. And the next lesson, we're going to be talking about counting carbs. This is a nutrition label that I cut out of a box of granola bars. There's over 50 ingredients. And they actually separate out the sugar. They actually list corn syrup, sugar, glucose, fructose on its own, barley malt extract. And that's just in the top line. And if you ever know about ingredients, they're supposed to list on the top the ingredients that are used quantity-wise the most. So for instance, bread, it's probably going to usually have flour as its top ingredients, because that's the quantity that you have the most. So sugar is the top of the list, and they've actually separated out. There's dozens of names of sugar. It's very eye-opening when I would just open the box, usually in the past, and start eating a granola bar and realize how many types of sugars are in something that seems like a general snack that we can have without worrying about it. So we're going to talk about nutrition labels in the next lesson. Looking forward to seeing you there.